Okay, we are ready to go whenever you're ready.
Okay. Welcome, everyone, to our Governance and Nominations Committee meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask the secretary to please call the roll.
Certainly, Madam Chair. Regent and Chair Juanita James.
Present.
Regent Ira Bloom.
Present.
Regent Richard Porth.
Present.
And Madam Chair, we have with us today Regent Don Williams and Chief of Staff Jessica Paquette and Vice Chancellor for External Affairs Adam Joseph.
Welcome, everyone. We do have one change to the agenda today, and that is that there will not be an executive session during today's meeting. So at this time, may I have a motion to adopt the agenda with the change for the executive session?
So moved. So moved.
Second,
I'll second it.
any discussion? So all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. The motion carries and the agenda is adopted. We have some speakers today, I understand. And each speaker will be announced by Samantha Norton and the time kept for the 3-minute. Is that not correct?
I apologize. I may have sent you a no speakers today.
No speakers today. Okay.
Apologies, Madam
In
Chair.
that case, I would like us to just proceed with the agenda items. So I am really pleased that we are having this meeting, the first meeting of our new calendar year. And we have a lot of work to do, but I think, managed to accomplish quite a lot in our December meeting. So one of the first things I would like to do is to call for approval of the minutes of the December 5th, 2025 meeting.
I'll move approval.
Second? Any
Second.
discussion? Any discussion, amendments, comments? Okay, with that, I will ask for a vote to approve the minutes. All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Our second agenda item is for us to discuss the approach, the board governance review and discussion. How do we want to fill board vacancies? That is the item up for discussion today. And I'd like to start with comments from my secretary. Any introductory, any approval? Karen?
Yes, by way of background, you all
Yes.
have in front of you, or were sent a list of the current board members, their appointing authority, and their terms. We currently have 2 vacancies on the Board of Regents. One of those vacancies is an appointment by the Senate Majority Leader for an alum of the Connecticut Community College, CT State Community College. The second vacancy, which recently occurred with the resignation of Regent Stewart, is the minority leader of the Senate's Senator Harding, Stephen Harding, and it is a specialist in K-12 education is the designation for the qualifications for that seat. Frequently, when there are vacancies on a board, it is not unusual for the agency to look to recruit candidates or to provide recommendations of candidates to the appointing authority. And that's the purpose of the discussion today, as I understand, is what is the approach that the board would like to take towards filling those vacancies and looking at what the existing qualifications and membership is of the board, and making those recommendations to move forward.
Rick?
Juanita, I
Yeah.
have, I have a couple thoughts. I, I appreciate you asking this question. I don't know how much we can change the way things are done. We are lucky to have Don Williams with us because that's a perspective I think that's really important in this. At the same time, one or two of our members were appointed by elected officials, and I wonder if this is the time to try to address the idea that board members' first priority is to the students and to the system, and not to their political appointer. And so I'd love to have that kind of conversation. Beyond that, you know, this is a public institution, and I respect that. And the way these appointments are defined in the statutes and other regulations seems pretty reasonable. I wish we could just figure out a way that we could know for sure that all of us are motivated by our commitment, by our duty to the system and to the students.
That's a very good question. I was thinking, because those are in the statutes, am I correct, Karen, the current process?
Correct.
What is, could we address that as being sort of part of the orientation? That when we do get board members, that we have that as part of the conversation. And I was also thinking that there might be an opportunity for us, if any of us have a relationship with the appointing bodies, to give them, have a meeting in advance and say, we are looking for additional board members, and here is an area where we really need, it would be helpful, for us to have some expertise. I mean, I think the way we work now with the governor is that the chair actually presents to the governor some people that we are thinking about and what we need, and the governor sort of takes a lot of the chair's recommendations. I just wonder, can we do the same? And Adam, you can help me out on this. Can we do the same with some of the other appointing bodies?
Thank you, Chair James. Yeah, so we do that both with the governor's office and with the four appointing authorities from the Connecticut General Assembly. So we do make recommendations. They don't necessarily have to take our recommendations, but we do recommend potential candidates when given the opportunity.
And in in light of the openings that we have available to us, have we already made some recommendations that we would want to re-engage, or I'd like to hear a little bit more. I know, as you said, sometimes they don't accept our recommendations, but what do we think would be uh, at this moment going forward, a reasonable next step?
Sure. So for at least one of the vacancies, we've recommended some names. We're actively working with that appointing authority to help identify folks. They've not landed on a decision yet. And on the other one, recent vacancy, we've not yet identified folks to recommend to that appointing authority.
So, would you recommend at this point, now that we have an opening, to engage in another conversation, or having one
Yes,
of us on the committee do that?
absolutely. I would recommend that. I think having a conversation would be helpful with the appointing authorities.
Okay.
Can
Is
can I ask again?
Yeah, go ahead, Rick.
This is good interchange there. Good. This can be helpful to us. Am I? Is it unreasonable, unrealistic to think that we could have a conversation with appointing authorities about their appointees' commitment first and foremost to the students and to the system. And again, I look to Don on this one, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Sure, I can comment on that. Yes, I mean I think that there could be a summary given to all of the appointing authorities of what we're looking for Board of Regent. Um, and one of those would obviously be a commitment to our state universities, and that really means to the students that attend. Um, I think if you take a look, though, at the appointing process, even at the very highest levels in our country, the Supreme Court, for example, there are all of those kinds of concerns that go into the appointment, and there are hearings held on that. But at the end of the day, people can uh, be independent thinkers. Let's put it like that, diplomatically, once they're on board. But Rick, to your point, though, I would think that something like a commitment to academic quality for the benefit of students, for
Mhm,
their own enrichment, and educational prosperity within our
mhm,
state, that's something that everybody you would think could get behind.
mhm. That's maybe the way we have to, maybe we need to be clearer on that somehow.
Well, and I also think that given a couple of these vacancies have been open for a very long time. So I would look to Adam to say maybe a more personal outreach from one of the regents might be helpful. Do you think that would be helpful? It's one of those things where you've been sort of having some of the same conversations with the same people for a while. And is there another an additional effort or outreach effort either from one of the board regents themselves or from Marty or myself to possibly maybe accelerate or elevate the focus on that?
I think region engagement in this area is appropriate and would be productive.
Okay, so can we have sort of a follow-up to any specific recommendation? Because I think the regents have been very open to providing the amount of support that the system office and the chancellor, needs to move these things forward, and clearly making sure that the board has a full complement of regents representing um, across our state, priorities as well as our own priorities. It's something that everyone has indicated a willingness to be more engaged and more supportive of the work to continue to strengthen the board. So that would be helpful.
Sure.
Okay. Any other thoughts in terms of the approach to filling our board vacancies? I think one of the reasons we asked for the matrix is to see where we have a gap, either functionally, skill set, geographic representation. So perhaps, Karen, it would be helpful for you to pull that matrix up. I know you did send it to us in advance.
Yes, let me, give me one moment, Madam Chair, and I will pull it up. While I'm pulling it up, just one of the points that was made earlier with regard to board member orientation. The statute, also has responsibilities for the regents as members of the board in terms of their fiduciary duty and their, adherence to the rules and regulations and that type of thing. So there are that piece of it that goes into the orientation and goes with the board's roles and responsibilities that we adopted last month that would be trained on. One moment. My apologies. I'm taking the, thought I would pull it up.
Having trouble with that?
No, just got it. It's getting it to the right screen. Can you see that?
Not yet. Okay.
Here we go. Hang on one moment. It's not letting me share appropriately. 1 second. This shares a little differently than other platforms, and so it's deciding it doesn't like it today.
And I apologize for us getting the materials to you so late. We did indicate in the future we would like to receive the materials for the pre-read materials at least 5 days in advance of the meeting to give everyone enough time to review them.
All right, let's see if this works this time.
If we can't get that, I think we can either move on to the next agenda item or just briefly, I believe we would be looking, given the vacancy that we have, we would look for someone regionally from that part of the state, given Erin's retirement or resignation from the board. And the other area that I remember particularly identifying is more. We added Regent Cummings because we were looking for more someone with more of an academic background. We added Don because of the importance of the relationships and the experience that he's had with one of our constituent bodies. Are there any other areas that we feel, as we are identifying candidates, that we would really like to see more experience or more relationships with in terms of bringing people to the board? Ira, you're on mute. Actually, you're all
Okay.
muted.
Yeah, I'm open now. I think there are two columns we could add to this chart.
Mhm.
One would be either the town or the county that the person is from. I don't know how fine grained we want to be, if we want to do the town or city or or just the county, but that would give us a sense of where in the state the person would be from. And second, the person's major line of work. Because that's, as you said before, just a few minutes ago, Madam Chair, with academic, it could be academic, it could be university, it could be executive, business executive. I mean, these are the things I think we would want to see. So if we had 2 more columns in this chart, we would have that.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful as we are thinking about candidates moving forward.
I like
Karen,
it too.
do you want me to give it? I think I might be able to share it, if that'll work for you.
Let me just, let me see one moment, Jessica. Can you see it now?
There you go.
Yes.
My apologies, it was not cooperative. This indicates the regent name, their appointing date, their appointing authority. And the reappointment just means that these are individuals who are going to the General Assembly where it has the yellow and reappointment question mark. Both Regent Cummings and Regent Williams were interim appointments, so they serve until the 6th Wednesday, so they will go before executive and legislative nominations. That's what that references to.
Yeah.
And then
And
this
one of the other things, one of the other things about this chart too is as we look at not only the most recent, the current vacancies, we know that we have a vacancy coming up in July when Regent Wright will
Yes.
really be stepping down. She did agree to renew, but only for 1 year. So and she brings tremendous depth of experience, both from the business sector and the human resources function. And as we think about that, that would be something I think we would want to make as a priority as well. So with the addition of those two columns, so what I'd like for us to think about as is not only revising this chart, but as we have a chance to contemplate where we are not only have vacancies, but where we're about to have vacancies is how we would, if we can think about doing that priority and doing our own either outreach within our own networks or how we would recommend approaching some of the appointing bodies in identifying this particular set of to complement. So we have a full complement of people who are able to engage and support the Regent's work in a nicely comprehensive and complementary way.
I can
Okay.
also add this chart as a resource, sort of the general professional background of the individuals who are on the committee currently, as you mentioned for Regent Cummings and for Regent Williams, Madam Chair.
Yeah, I think that would by adding the two columns that Ira suggested, and then filling them in with both the profile of the current regents, that would be helpful and would address that.
I agree. I think it's a good idea. Thanks, Ira. Can I just say I know it's not uncommon for board members to recommend or to nominate new members. I'd just like to. I've been on a board or two where that became an issue,
Mm,
and is there language we could? Is there a way we could encourage that, but avoid what could potentially be the not so positive aspects of that?
yeah. See, Rick, I agree with you on that. It can become very, which is why if we as a committee,
Yeah.
the purpose of this is for us to identify a process and starting with where
Mhm.
we feel whether it's geographic, skill, background, relationships, where we would prioritize what we feel would be helpful in terms of complementing the current profile of the board. And that way, if people make recommendations, this committee would be the committee to say, how do we
Yeah.
prioritize? We should have a list of potential candidates, and then we should prioritize based on where we see the biggest opportunity to fill some gaps, how we would do that. And if that's part of the understanding that that's where the process goes, because it is really the chair who appoints the committee chairs as well as the committee assignments, that I think those two aspects will help us create a more disciplined, inclusive, but a more disciplined process going forward.
That makes sense, Juanita.
Yeah.
As long
And
as the full board understands that that is our.
right, exactly. If we can articulate how this process will be created and followed. And FYI, for the January 22nd meeting, I believe our chair is going to be making recommendations for perhaps changing or rotating some committee chair assignments, as well as he's having individual conversations with each region right now to think about how we fill out the committee roles and responsibilities, as well as a recommendation that should come from us, whether we think we have the right number of committees now. And we have finance, audit, HR, technology, governance, which is a new committee that was formed. And did I miss one, Karen? No.
ASA.
Hey,
Academic.
I missed. How could I forget? ASA. Fundamental building block of why we're all here. Absolutely. Yes. But I don't think that unless we want to make a recommendation that we add or change committees, I think we actually have the right committees now for what we need to um, strengthen the governance and moving forward of the board.
I would agree. I would agree with that. I think we do have the right committees.
Yeah. And Don, even though you are not yet a member of a member of the committee, we are certainly inviting you because of your breadth and your experience. So do not be shy about offering some comments or insights in this meeting as well. You're an invited guest, and your comments are welcomed.
Well, I'm feeling virtually empowered now that I read that chart, and it has me as a member of finance and governance. So I don't really know what to think there. Maybe I'm in, maybe I'm not, but I do feel empowered to speak. Thank you.
Well, I would hope that that conversation happened with you individually before we put it on the chart. So
No, I that's what I requested of our chair.
yes, okay. So that's fine.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
I think I'm slowing us down today, and I apologize, but
No, Rick, we want the questions. This is part of this is the formation. This committee is still forming and we're at the beginning of our journey of how we think we want to operate, not only as a committee, but how we want to influence a better governance of the board.
the answer to this may be obvious, Juanita. When the board needs to make a decision quickly and before the next full board meeting, how do we do that now? Many organizations use an executive committee. How do we do that?
That's a good question. I don't know how we do that. We do have an executive committee, do we not? Or
We did. We had an
we
executive
had an
committee.
executive committee,
Executive
but we
committee.
haven't really, we basically eliminated that committee
We
because
eliminated it, which I didn't support for
I
whatever.
remember that.
It's but I think the idea was that the governance committee would, as we discussed it back then, would perform that role that the executive committee would have had. But I think it's more and more important. I think Rick's point is more and more important given what's going on around us, that we have I guess with the military, with a rapid reaction force that we can, that we can call in if something really strange happens. And it seems to be happening more and more in different universities around the country.
So would one of the recommendations from this committee be for us to reinstitute an executive committee and then
I would recommend that. I mean, I guess I mean, as you remember, I was opposed to getting rid of it. So I think given the circumstances in the country, I think we actually need it.
And I have two different opinions about that. I think we need a formal way to make decisions quickly when the full board can't meet. I've been in situations where it's done by people voting um, through a text or email process after some discussion, and the full board is involved in that and reacts to a recommendation and some context. But the most common thing I think are executive committees, and there I think we'd have to be. All I can say is if we do that, we really need to be careful when the executive committee is authorized to make a decision on behalf of the full board. That's why I know I'm the one that asked this question, but at the same time, I think we do need to move quickly, just like Ira said sometimes. But we need to first and foremost make sure that every board member feels that this is a fair process where their voice can be heard. So sorry about that. I don't know the answer to that.
One of the things I think, one of the difficulties with the executive committee, but in the past, and not just this executive committee, but others I've seen, it becomes a forum to move things along quickly when there isn't an emergency.
Mm.
In other words, I think Rick's point I think it's a very valid point. If we could limit the executive committee's actions to circumstances where we have to have a decision
Yeah.
very quickly,
Yeah.
I think we addressed the problem, Rick, that
Yeah.
we shouldn't be using it routinely
Right.
as a routine mechanism. We have the subject matter committees to deal with the routine type issues.
But what I'm hearing is there may be two different approaches to address this. One is to actually form a formal executive committee and just define its roles and responsibilities and what its limitations are. The other is to define a process by which we can just call an emergency
Sure.
session of the full board and that we can execute those kinds of decisions either via email or if we can't get everyone together. So this to me is I'd like to see us and Karen, I'm going to ask you to do this. I'd like to see us present these two approaches and how they would work and have that as an executive session topic for the full board so that we get a sense of where the board feels most comfortable. But I do think we need some mechanism
Yeah.
to make quick and immediate decisions that are outside the normal pattern of board meetings.
Yeah.
Certainly, Madam
Thanks,
Chair.
Juanita. I agree with that. I'm comfortable.
Don, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that one as well.
Yeah, I also share some concern about, well, what Ira referred to, sort of if there were a slippery slope toward having a shadow docket, if you will, if I can continue the Supreme Court analogy, um, so that and I do think Rick is right that we might want to first explore the special meeting strategy, that in this age of the online meetings like we're having right now, that something can be put together pretty quickly, and for those who can't join, that they have an opportunity to have the summary of the issue and an opportunity to vote online, either through email, text, or what have you. I've been part of other organizations where that's pretty routine in terms of special meetings and voting by email. So that's something that still keeps the board in the loop, um, and gives people their opportunity to be heard, or to at least express their opinion in a vote.
Well, I do think this is a topic worthy of discussion in executive session with the full board. So if we can put together a very sort of short paragraphs on, here are two approaches. One can be a more formal structure of an executive committee. Here are the potential pluses and minuses of that approach. The other is to create a mechanism to have either virtual, email, immediate emergency sessions, and see where we come out. Because I think as a board, we're going to have different opinions on that.
I would be concerned about doing something like this by email. I think we have the capability electronically now to see. I mean, if I were to show up on a campus, and we would have to make a decision about how to deal with it, I wouldn't want to do that by email. I'd want to hear what what my colleagues have to say and what they think, even if it's a quick meeting. But I don't know how you would encapsulate that in an email.
Yeah.
Um, and we'd want to hear, presumably we'd want to hear from the president of the campus, from the chancellor. I mean, it would be hard to do that by email.
So do we already have a mechanism in place that allows us to do that, Karen, or not? Or have we not articulated one or documented one?
You mean in terms of voting by email or there?
No, I mean in terms of the ability to form and quickly put together a special meeting, a virtual meeting, that we
Yes,
can make some immediate decisions. I would think that we already have that capability, but we may not
we do have
have it
that
done.
capability.
We do
And
have that.
the
What
only
does open
limitation
public
on
meet?
this is the FOI rules, which require 24 hours for a special meeting notice. And the agenda can't be changed. It has to be 24 hours in advance so the public is able
24
to
hours.
be present and know what you're talking about.
So FOI and open public meetings only require 24-hour notice for special meetings?
Correct.
Okay.
I mean, that's workable.
Yeah, it is.
So can we put together a recommendation to say this is how we would, now to me, 24 hours is notice seems reasonable unless you have some kind of emergency that happens on the campus or on a campus and it needs immediate input. Do we have that articulated? I'm not sure we do. And unfortunately, in today's environment, that could happen.
I think in that situation, where, there's an immediate crisis on a campus, it seems to me that the chair and the chancellor could ask. I mean, that's a situation where you would expect the chief executive to act,
Right.
I think. And I think the chair and the chancellor would have to respond, and they can call upon they could ask advice, presumably from any of us that they want to ask advice from. But it wouldn't be immediate. I mean, this would be, if something is happening this afternoon and we need to deal with it, it seems to me this becomes
The institutional precedents.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
I
executives
think
either
that's
on the
right.
campus or in the system, or um, I mean
Agreed,
that's one of the things they're there for.
agreed.
So my recommendation is for us to draft some type of, addressing exactly what the questions that have come up, because we don't have something, and if we do have something, we certainly don't have something that's well communicated or well understood by the board as far as um, important decisions that have to happen before the formal board meeting is scheduled, um, versus the crisis. But I do think it's important to define, um, and suggest or recommend if we what we think the appropriate process should be.
I think also this fits together with the item on succession. I mean, if this were to happen, and let's say the chancellor was visiting in Mongolia, um,
Right,
who
and we
is,
actually we have a whole document on that, in terms
yeah,
of, that was actually part of the pre-read materials, so.
so, but I mean, people need to know who that is.
Right,
How,
right,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, in other
yeah.
words, if the chancellor's in Mongolia, who does the governor call if something is going on? I mean, I think this is part of a package of, in a sense, in that sense.
Okay.
I, I will put together, what is the current state of the law with regard to special meetings, the amount of time that is necessary to lead it, what your executive committee that is currently in the bylaws but hasn't operated, is, the purpose of it, and what, based on the discussion, what the narrow purpose you talked about in terms of an emergency, and what the rules around that would be and what would qualify as an emergency among the other items mentioned.
And there were a number of materials, and I know we're jumping around a little bit in terms of the agenda. There were a number of, there in the pre-read materials. Again, we didn't have a lot of time to digest and discuss this, but there were a number of attachments with respect to delegation, the order of, the assigned
Exactly.
responsibility in the absence of the president, the reason for the policy, uh, a list of, what the line of authority is. And all of those are things that I think are worthy of us having a conversation and a recommendation about what we think makes sense for our system, and where we think, that should lie. But I'm concerned about bringing that to closure today, given the fact that we really haven't had enough, opportunity to discuss it, think about it, have the pluses and minuses. So I would actually recommend that as a first priority for the next GNC meeting.
Mhm.
And
Madam
I,
Chair, would you like to walk through some of the questions, with regard to, what comes up in terms of the delegation of authority, that would
Mhm.
form the discussion?
I think we can divide it into four different pieces. Um, Something on a campus
Mhm.
that may be either short term or long term. I mean, if the president's away for 3 days, that's one thing. If the president's away for 3 months, that's something else. And the same at the system level. In other words, for the chancellor, if the chancellor is away for 3 days, or if the chancellor is away for 3 months. Because I think that makes a difference, succession on the campus, I think can fall for a day or two if it has to, on the senior most vice president, or we have some. The president can designate on a campus, can designate, I think, the person for a short term responsibility. I think for longer term responsibility, I think that becomes perhaps part of what we need to be doing. So I think there are basically, I think, four pieces to this. On the campus, two possibilities on the campus and two possibilities in the system.
Would you like?
I can see you thinking, Rick.
I've been talking too much. I'm going to stay quiet now.
No, you don't. Well, it's really, Don.
Juanita, I think you put it well that we should take a look at some different succession plans. Some were included in the materials. Two, we need to think about that, and that we're probably, I would agree with you, we're probably not ready to act on that today. But I mean, to my way of thinking, there ought to be some sort of clear line of succession. President, vice president, Speaker of the House.
Yeah.
President, and when a person is away or unreachable, and we can define it in a number of different types of ways, that there is just an automatic next person that you go to. The clearer that can be, the better it is. I noticed in one of the proposals there was some discussion about having a panel of the president's cabinet or something like that, I think, at one of the institutions, which I think would be a terrible idea. I think
that was my reaction to that idea.
That was my reaction as well.
You need to know who's next in line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If six people are next, then nobody's next.
Right.
That's
Exactly.
right.
Exactly. So I think we're all in agreement on that one. It was an interesting approach, I thought, but I could see it becoming very murky very quickly. So So I'm putting down as an agenda item for our next meeting is the whole clear line of succession and having more, not only more time to think about this, but coming up with some particular approaches or models that we could consider and then make a recommendation what we think is appropriate for our system and our institutions. Okay. With that, what I would like to see if we can accomplish is looking at the board member orientation schedule and a recommendation around that. And I did not see a draft recommendation of what the schedule would be, unless I missed something, Karen.
No, there was not a draft recommendation as to the schedule. In the onboarding document that the board looked at back in March, or the committee looked at back in March, had a proposed 2-day schedule with a cadence. And so I thought that would be a good starting point, since it's something that the board had looked at previously, and had been, at least at that time, had been in favor of that cadence. But there's been subsequent conversations about doing it in smaller chunks, given the region's availability and time, and also having the existing regions go back through it. So I thought that would be a good starting place, that document, for the discussion in terms of developing sort of that model so that more people can take advantage of the shorter sessions rather than a 2 full-day schedule.
Could I like the schedule, but I get your point. I really do. Do we have to put this all in stone right now, or could we offer this up as a set of guidelines to be implemented by our board chair or by the governance committee each time, based on the needs of new members or whatever could work best at that point in time?
So, Rick, I don't see anything that we're doing right now as being set in stone.
Mhm.
I think where we are, though, as an institution, is that there is an incredible lack of
Mhm.
guidelines, processes, procedures, right? So
Mhm.
I've been on the board since 2022, which I didn't even realize I'd been on the board since 2022. I've never had an orientation.
Yeah, yeah.
So I do think we should be trying to put something in place. We have two
Mhm.
relatively new board members, Don um, and
Phil.
Dell. We're about to recommend fill
Mhm.
some vacancies. So I actually think we should at least try to put something in place as
Mhm.
right now, our straw man is a 2-day orientation. I frankly don't think that that's unreasonable, because just as part of the
Mhm.
process is we have to invest some time to go before the legislature for a
Mhm.
confirmation. Um, and then I think if we at least have something in place, we can divide it up into chunks. But it seems to me that we can start with what we discussed a year ago,
Yeah.
um, as a let's try to schedule a 2-day orientation for our new regions, and invite the current regents to attend if they can make their schedules
Mhm.
available. Because the downside of not doing that is we stretch these pieces over. So what it's
Yeah.
going to be, a 4-month orientation process, and we'll be into the next academic year before we've had an orientation. So my instinct is to say, let's try to identify some calendar dates now, as in do
Mhm.
a survey, do a doodle poll, focused specifically on the new members and the chair and the vice chair, because we have those are sort of the people who are very involved in trying to do that. Let's try to get something off the ground
Mhm.
now. But I don't think it's something that's set in stone, because it's the first time we're trying to do it, which means we're going to identify as we move along what's working and what doesn't work, but have something to respond to.
Yep. I agree with everything you just said, Juanita.
Mm-hmm. I do also.
Putting out a doodle poll to get the onboarding underway. The statute defines it, board roles and responsibilities, have added to that cadence or materials for the orientation. And we do have materials put together to cover the other parts of the orientation, updated for recent legislative changes. So we will get that underway.
To Don's point earlier in the meeting, can we put something in this onboarding that emphasizes our duty of care to the students, and to the system as a whole, or something like that? Just, just so that's part of any orientation that someone gets.
Yes, that is a key piece of it. Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
So these meetings are still kind of loosey-goosey. They need to take better shape and form, and I expect them to continue to improve over time.
Mhm.
Um, I don't think it's a surprise that Marty has asked Rick to chair the Governance and Nominations Committee, and that will be one of the recommendations that he's making at the January 22nd meeting. I'm sure that there won't be any, that is the chair's prerogative is to assign the committee chairs as well as the committee assignments. So, um, and I'm absolutely enthusiastically in favor of that. So,
I'm a
and
little nervous, Juanita, but
well, you know what, Rick? I think it's really good that you are willing to step up, because we are at that inflection point where this is so important. And I think it will be very helpful for us as a board and as a body, as an entity going forward.
Thanks. Don't leave.
No, I didn't say I wanted to leave. He just has me doing so many other things. He doesn't want me to chair the committee, so,
Yeah.
which is fair. Any other? We also had on here to review the draft confidentiality language in current materials, and we did not really talk about that.
There was a desire to strengthen, or look at ways to strengthen the confidentiality language that is in the board, for instance, in the board roles and responsibilities. There are many, or not many, there are a number of places in our statutes which point to confidentiality. The state ethics definition is one of those things that are not public under the Freedom of Information or are discretionarily not public under the Freedom of Information Act. I think so we could add to that document or add to the materials for the onboarding and training of the regents a more robust, where it occurs in the statute, which is your responsibilities as board members in respect to those statutes, as a way to approach strengthening the concept of, or not the concept, the responsibility that you have for confidentiality, versus a common definition that I could find that would encompass strengthening that, short of actions that the board itself would want to take for a violation of confidentiality. But that was not, that I think was not the discussion at the time. It was more, is there a way to strengthen the definition? And I think without providing the context of where the confidentiality provisions come in, it doesn't lend itself to a comprehensive definition of confidentiality, but more of a reinforcement through the onboarding materials and the board handbook.
Ira?
I think one of the things that we had talked about and stressed was the meaning of executive session and the confidentiality of items discussed. And I think that's one of the things that we thought previously needed to be reinforced.
We did add that in the roles and responsibilities, but yes, in terms of reinforced, we can do that through the board materials, board handbook, and through the onboarding.
Any other comments or questions? I don't think we have taken any action items that would involve a report or approval at the January 22nd board meeting.
Correct.
However, we do have a GNC committee meeting scheduled for February 9th. And I would hope that between now and February 9th, we would have more of the follow-up actions that we have discussed at this meeting. And I would also hope that and expect our new chair to be having discussions both about the agenda and the pre-read materials, and that they should go out to the committee by Wednesday, the 4th.
Yes.
So that it gives people an opportunity to read, review, have consideration, so that the meeting itself need to just be tighter and feel more of a sense of forward progress. So I apologize for the fact that we still seem to be, kind of mushy is my technical word for it. But I hope that it becomes more baked and disciplined and organized and structured as we move forward.
Yeah. Absolutely. And Karen, we can work together to make sure of that. And I'm awful glad we have our staff leaders with us on this call and working in this committee too. All three are great, and we'll do good with this going forward, as we have already. By the way, Juanita, thanks for all your good work.
Yeah, and Karen, I think it would be helpful for us to get the minutes from this meeting sooner rather than later, because there were a lot of follow-up steps that we said we wanted to have done. So if we could have those literally in a week, that would be helpful as we're thinking about putting together the agenda and make sure that we have the follow-up actions, completed. So I know there were a number of things that we discussed in terms of both the change to the process, identifying areas, adding things to the chart as so that we have a good uh, board composition planning chart, moving forward. So if we could get those minutes, because we discussed a lot of items today, but left most of them open-ended in terms of further work that needs to be done in refinement for the next meeting. I think it would be really good for us to have that in mind sooner rather than later.
Absolutely.
Makes sense.
Our illustrious guest, Don, would you like to offer comments or observations? Or I think, this has been much more of a let's think about what's next. And the only concrete item that came out of it, as far as I'm concerned, is the fact that we do want to add some columns to the board composition chart, and we are going to do a doodle poll in terms of scheduling this 2-day orientation and move forward as that. But we have other major things that we need to tackle and need a little bit more structure to them.
No, I think that makes sense. And I think you're on a good path in terms of the various things we've talked about today, and getting the materials and the schedule pulled together for the onboarding will be very good too. I mean, the legislature gave us X amount of points to cover. Those are mentioned and covered in the materials that were sent out in advance. So now it's a matter of really just figuring out how we want to convey that to new members and scheduling that and getting that rolling. So that's good.
Yeah, and I, for one, am glad, Don, that you'll be part of that discussion going forward. I still hope we can, one of our next issues can be after the onboarding and the orientation, how can we not enforce it, but encourage its use by our members on a regular basis? That's what I hope for too. That we have an effective and not too intrusive way to encourage people to use these rules and responsibilities. Anyway, sorry, I got up on my soapbox again.
Well, I think it's
It's good. Go ahead, Don.
no, Rick. I think that's a good point, and I think it's if we view it maybe understanding my dealings with human nature a little bit, if less as here's the eat your spinach that you have to
Right.
take
Right.
on here in order to be a
Yeah.
happy, healthy board member. If it's really more about empowerment and
Mhm.
um, here's kind of like the how-to. I mean, just like me going on the finance committee. It's kind of like, all right, well, what I'd really love to know about that is what has the experience been in the past? What's the board's role? What information do we get? When does the process
Mhm.
start?
Mhm.
What has our input been in the past? When are the
Yeah.
check-ins from the chancellor and his staff with the finance committee?
Yep.
So that we and to the extent that the board members have their committee assignments, so that they know what committee's on. If they understand the purview of those committees,
Mhm.
and what those committees are capable of, and then the feedback between the chancellor's office and the broader university staff in terms of information with those committees. And then the schedule, like for the finance committee, there are absolute deadlines, budget, legislative adoption, potentially all the rest of that. And I suspect with other committees, there are similar timetables.
Mhm.
Then all of a sudden for the board members, those wheels start turning. It's like, okay, I can see what my role is on the committees that I have. And that's when the full engagement really starts to happen.
Right.
Yep.
And that's what I see our role is in terms of, helping to coordinate that information and through the orientation.
Yep.
Yep.
Agreed. Makes good sense.
Ira, any closing comments before I ask for a motion to adjourn?
No, the only item that I would like to see settled before the beginning of the new semester is any ambiguities in the succession issue,
Yes.
because
Mhm.
Yes.
once the students are back,
Right.
the potential for things happening increases.
And they tend to increase more during the spring semester than any other time.
That's right. Yes. I mean, historically,
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of activity over the years, and as Juanita says, most of it has been in the spring semester. It
That's
gets a little
interesting.
warmer outside, and not only do the students go out in the lawn to do whatever young people do on lawns, but they also start doing other things.
Well, and I think particularly with all of the external pressures that are happening and everything
Yeah,
that's going on,
yeah.
This is a year that we have to really be very try to anticipate
Yeah.
and be proactive in thinking about the work that needs to be done and our role in that activity. So, okay. Adam, Jessica, Karen, anything you would like to add as before I ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting? No?
Nothing, Madam Chair.
Thank you for having us.
Okay. Thank you. Onward and upward, as we say. I
Amen.
will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Second. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much for your time, attention, interest, and passion. And we have work to do, but we will be doing it together. So I think that's the important piece, is that this is a collective effort, and therefore it will be messy, but it will also at the end be something that I think can all embrace and move forward with. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Juanita.
you,
Thanks,
Juanita.
everyone.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Bye-bye.
Stream has stopped. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.